Okay, hello everybody. Thanks for sticking around for us for the last session. My name's Ronnie Taylor and I'm with Sperian, Vice President of Strategy and Business Development. And today we're here to talk about the changes in telematics for the trailer. And you're hearing a lot about the smart trailers and the connected trailers. And for me personally, I'm kind of a pioneer in the trailer tracking segment, so it's a really exciting time. And I'm joined here with Jerry Mead, Mark Ehrlich, and Eric Witten. And I'm just going to have them talk a little bit about what they do and who they're with, and then we'll get started.
Good afternoon. My name is Jerry Mead. I'm Executive Director of Innovation for Philips Industries and also support our Connected Technologies divisions, Philips Connected Technologies. Been in the industry for about 20 years. Was Senior Vice President of Maintenance and Vice President of Maintenance for some large companies and directors at other ones. Some of the most top 100 carriers across the country, Walmart, J.B. Hunt, U.S. Express. So been in the industry for a while and know a little bit about maintenance and connected technologies.
Good afternoon. My name is Mark Ehrlich with Wabash National. I'm the director of our van product line. I've been with the company employed for about 5 years. I'm second generation to Wabash National and have a lifetime of experience through that. So thank you for being here.
My name is Eric Witten. I'm Senior Vice President of Technology for Covenant Transportation Group. We're a truckload carrier based just up the road in Chattanooga, Tennessee. We specialize in expedited freight, truckload carrier. We also have a fairly large refrigerated division, Southern Refrigerated out of Texarkana, Arkansas. And we do a little bit of dedicated work as well. I have about 20 years of experience in the transportation industry.
Great. Thank you, everybody. When you think about trailer tracking or trailer management, as we call it at Sperian, you know, it goes back to about 1999. That's when they first started to put some telematics devices on the trailers. And, you know, the early adopters of trailer tracking thought it was fantastic that they could get a location position at 6 o'clock in the morning and then 6 o'clock in the evening. But they didn't really know what was happening with their trailer in between. Somebody could take it away and drive it, take it down to Mexico or make a few deliveries and then bring it back. And, you know, when they did their virtual yard checks at 6 p.m., their trailers were there and everything was good. But now what we're seeing is this, we're being inundated with so much potential data. So I'm going to just take our panel through a few questions to enlighten us. So, guys, when you think about the smart trailer or the connected trailer, as we all really heard a lot about that at TMC this year, what does it mean to you? So, Mark, let me start with you, being you have trailers in your blood.
Yeah, the smart trailer, smart anything within the trailer industry, from the manufacturing side, we're in a relatively low-tech marketplace. And so that takes on a lot of different things. And when we look to scale technology in a low-tech environment, we've got to look towards a standardization of that technology to help the industry adopt that. But what smart trailer means for us is it's an electronic infrastructure within the trailer. So that's sensor-based, collecting actionable data, either edge computed or centrally based or cloud-based. And that actionable is the question piece, I think.
And Jerry?
You know, I tell you, smart trailer and connected trailer is really two different things when you think about it. I mean, smart goes into connected, but the smart trailer is a trailer. When you look at trailers of old, where a trailer would sit off in a corner somewheres and you wouldn't really know much about it until a driver really looked at it or didn't look at it. But a smart trailer is one that can call you and talk to you and tell you its issues. On anything that can be sensed. Says we're in the environment today. if it can be sensed, it can be tracked. And that's what a smart trailer, but a smart trailer can't wait for a user to request its data. A smart trailer must take, and market it right, it must bring you the actionable data to you before you request it, so that way you can take action instead of you waiting or it waiting for you to queue it. And then when you look at the connected trailer, that's when you couple that unit together, and it must communicate up and utilize the truck's ecosystem and work as one. And that's when it really, you take that trailer when itself, that's smart, but when it's connected, that unit must work as one single entity and communicate, and then use the collaborative alerts, and really they may determine different things or course of actions to occur, and that's a smart trailer to me.
And Eric, how about from a carrier's perspective?
Yeah, as a consumer of the data,
Exactly.
I would paint with a very large brush and say that a smart trailer to me is a device that would proactively communicate relevant information to the parties that need it when they need it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's good. You know, I think for those of us who've been in the trailer telematics for a long time, you know, we think about providing visibility, but as we heard from some of the other speakers today, I think with the smart trailer and the connected trailer, we're giving you sort of that transparency. The trailers now are providing that data that is so critical. So let's talk a little bit about the data. There's a lot, we're talking about a lot more data. So how do we think the carrier is going to be able to handle this data, and is it going to be, too much of an overload? So let me start with you, Jerry.
I'll tell you, and that's why it's got to be the data. It has to be edge computed, and the only data that the fleet wants or desires from speaking from that side is the data that it needs to take action on. There's a lot of data coming off sensors. If anybody's ever read it or plugged into even a simple ABS ECU on a trailer, there's all kinds of data being transmitted across, but it's not necessarily data you need. It's who can take that data and make it really actionable and meaningful is the data that's needed, and that will stop the data overload at that point. And you must do that on the edge or at the cloud, and then transmit that almost instantaneous to the fleet for it to be worthwhile for them.
Okay. And Eric, what do you think?
Yeah, that's exactly right. You've got to have data that's actionable, and we're already getting pings every 15 minutes on all of our trailers, and so there's a tremendous amount of data coming in. So what we are planning to do is to keep a small amount of transactional data that's actionable, that needs immediate attention, and then load into the cloud historical data for analytics, for preventive maintenance, algorithms, and things like that.
Yeah. And Mark?
And part of the advantage of going last is, like you said, we can echo some of the earlier comments. The prior discussion was great. I think when we look at action-based, who is the actor? Is it the fleet? Is it from the OE perspective? We look at it maybe a little bit differently. Ultimately, we're creating value from this data set. And the answer is all of them, right? That we need to try to extract that with the center on making the fleet first and foremost, I believe. The types of data, there are thousands of variables. And I think it's interesting and unique to the trailer is that the trailer carries the ability to have a little bit richer data set because of we're hauling the commodity, right? The truck hauls the kingpin. It looks the same most of the time. The trailer doesn't, and there's opportunities there that we could key into what is actually going on in the back of that trailer that are unique to the trailer. And the fact that you've got the ratio, the tractor to trailer ratio, I think that makes IoT integration into the semi-trailer market, it's a little wrinkle in complexity that just makes it that much more challenging to overcome, tethered versus non-tethered.
Yeah. And so Mark, just to follow up for you, you know, as an OEM, do you see yourselves consuming the data and using the data, any of the data for R&D purposes, or?
I think, as mentioned earlier, certainly R&D or preventative maintenance from our end, warranty was also brought up. Parts availability, we're not going to throw that out. But yeah, those are pieces of information that could have value in the total operational cost of the trailer.
Yeah, and I think for whoever's using the data, integration is really critical. To have that data into a system, a TMS system or whatever, so that you can actually get those alerts to the right person.
Well, you know, the key is we have to move from a fix is fail to a fix is predictive mentality or predictive maintenance. That's where a lot of the value comes in, because people don't realize, Ronnie, how many times, because of the tractor to trailer ratio, and depending on what it is, 2.5 to 1, 3 to 1, whatever the fleet's at, there's the assets sitting out there that we depend on someone to do a post trip on. Well, they not necessarily do that post trip, so when we send that next driver out there, well, now he's got to make a phone call because there's issues. And really the smart trailer technology will help take away that problem and now tell you that issue's there so you can proactively get it fixed. And now when that driver gets there, you recover some of his time, which that piece also influences driver retention. And it takes that 660 minutes that a driver has in his day, and we recover some of that time back, and now he's making miles, and it helps the fleet in the long run, besides his maintenance costs also.
Yeah, we like to say that, you know, the value prop for the driver started out to by knowing where the trailer is, right? So you dispatch him to it. And then secondly, knowing that it's empty, it's truly empty, and being able to send him for an empty trailer. But now being able to really save him time. And I think predictive maintenance is really good. And we're starting to hear a lot about prescriptive maintenance too, so that you can prescribe and have your you know, the information needed and the techs ready to take care of an issue that may come on the trailer. So let's talk a little bit more about maintenance. So Eric, from your perspective, do you think that having information from some of the trailer components will help you with maintaining them?
Yeah, I think that's one of the biggest problems that we face as a carrier as we go out in the trailer pools, and we have a driver go out and there's a trailer that has a problem. Well, they don't want to report that, so they just move to the next trailer, and they keep moving, and that trailer sits there for a long time. What would be great is if that trailer would tell maintenance that it's not healthy, and would be able to report that.
Yeah, and Covenant doesn't have a lot of maintenance facilities around the country, so that's really critical for you all too. So Mark, any thoughts on maintenance?
Yeah, to add on that, you know, driver behavior was mentioned earlier. Knowing where your damage takes place, that's a training opportunity, right? We could, if 80% of your damage happens in the yard, that's a addressable training event that might be different from so just knowing what that looked like, where it's occurring, tremendously important. And we believe that that's technology that exists. That's not light years off, where you could easily tell an impact to the front. We all know where these impacts happen on the trailer, so it's something that could be easily doable.
And Jerry, for you have integration into a lot of the different components that are on the trailer, and are those folks also interested in the data?
You know, The Economist, which is a magazine, put out a quick quote in 2016: "Data is the oil of tomorrow." So it's that simple. And I can tell you from a maintenance perspective, when you look across all spectrums, you know, the data is valuable to everybody. And when you look at from a fleet's perspective, now I can look at my different components and see who's truly the best. and really see where my issues are. Same with an OE, maybe their standard parts are different. Same even to that individual, to where they really have now a rolling engineering lab. Because before, when you did testing, they got to come out, they got to apply a dongle, they got to put something on, now they got to chase that trailer down, they have to unplug that. But see, even out of that from your maintenance, the biggest value is today, and especially a truckload carrier, you may not see that trailer for its life. It may be picked up at Lafayette, and the next time you see it is maybe it rolled through and someone saw it, but most of its life is living outside.
Yeah.
So now you can check the health on different things. But the best thing about it is, back in the day, we've had hubometers, and you chase down hubometers, and you're trying to do trailer maintenance by miles. But now getting that miles, the miles have always been there on the ABS ECM, and now you can really dive in and now set your maintenance cycle up from a mileage standpoint, because sometimes trailers over here, they're sitting a lot, and you're still doing time-based maintenance, and you're wasting a lot of money. And these trailers over here, they're running a lot. So when you try to really look, and then you develop your pull points, because you don't want to wait to fail, right? So you develop your pull points, now you can really fine-tune them in and save a lot of dollars on the maintenance side.
Interesting, yeah. So we had our, at Experian, we had 10 of our customers join us in Irvine last week for our customer advisory board meeting. And this was a hot topic for everybody. They were very interested in what we were going to be talking about today. And one of the questions that they had was, well, how will this affect freight management just in general, and how will it make us more efficient? So, Mark, any thoughts on that?
I think data used properly drives efficiencies across many variables. I think the barriers to this technology adoption, one of those is going to be obviously the cost play, and that's a challenge that we have to get through the industry, especially in the trucking industry. One of the things that, to the technologists out there, know your persona, so know the fleets well. That's the biggest, I would say, challenge that we've seen at Wabash is a lot of technology comes in the door but doesn't know the application well. And we're second hand to the fleet. They're obviously going to know the most on what is the proper application of data. But the other piece is there are technologies that need to be seeded too. And we can't, we try to foster that at Wabash. So our vision on where we think the innovation in the trailer world is headed is not in mechanical innovation. We've run that course. It's in this electrical infrastructure with use of sensors. And so there's a mix of both of those, and trying to scale that and get that adoption in is certainly going to be a challenge in the next decade or so within the trailer space.
Yeah. Okay. Anybody else? Eric, you want to just talk a little bit about how you think it can improve your utilization?
Yeah, sure. There's three facets of what we want to use trailer data to do. We want to use it to make us a more secure carrier. If we know our locations, and when I started working for Covenant Transport, I had come out from a receiver side of the supply chain. And I came into Covenant to work on the EDI side and stand up their EDI systems. And I found it very bizarre that we tracked the truck, because the customer could care less about the truck. The customer wanted to know where their freight was, and the freight's always on that trailer. And I remember writing code in these programs that just had to make assumptions and things to make sure that I was tracking the customer's freight right. But we want to be a more secure carrier. We want to be a safer carrier, which means maintenance, right? You have good quality equipment. And then we want to have utilization on our trailers. So we take those three components and we can use trailer to transform how we're doing our business.
Yeah, that's a really good point. So just if we're thinking about CSA scores, it sounds to me like this new technology will really be able to affect the CSA scores or the CSA violations in a very positive way. Jerry, do you have any comments on that?
If I can check my trailers when no one's on them, right? And check the three main violations, brakes, lights, and tires.
Yeah.
And just cut them in half by 50%, we'll say. One, we're safer on the road. Two, my driver's points, my personal carrier points, 50% of those points waived off of there is a huge outcome, and it makes the road safer. And this technology, with its ability to, one, forecast what my brake pull point needs to be, my tire pull point, set a time based on usage of units individually, see when I have a light out detection, remain locked down so a driver cannot move it until it's fixed. Of course it's going to overall have effects on CSA. But Mark summed it up. One is people got to see the value. And really the biggest value in all this technology, Ronnie, is time recovery and then reduction in assets. Because you look today, most carriers the holy grail is about 2.5 to 1. Most are closer to that 3 range. If you start taking assets out of, because you don't need them, because now you can fix them faster. Now you can really look at your utilization by unit. So now you don't need as many. Well, you just enhance that line. And once you take less assets, your maintenance line's automatically going to go down. So now you affected capital. Now you affected what your maintenance costs are. In the end, it's an OR change. Your drivers are happier because the assets available, and CSA scores are better. So it comes in with a myriad of actions to really drive home its ROI, or it's reduce the total cost of ownership for that asset itself.
Got it. So another question that continues to come up is there's so many new players in this space. So the trailer OEMs are involved, and harness manufacturers are involved, and then there are the traditional telematics companies. And so what kind of advice would you give to a carrier who's looking at this type of technology, especially if they buy, I'm sorry, Mark, but they might buy trailers from other manufacturers. So what happens if they do that? So what kind of advice would you give a carrier today in just navigating this new technology?
Going back to the piece on understanding the application, it is surprising to see how many technologies have come in without a full understanding and have made it as far as they have without a full understanding of the marketplace. I am shocked. The first movers, there's always risk. And if you pick the wrong platform, that's a problem. So when you look at agnostic assets that could use either system, look for that so that you don't have the risk of picking the wrong technology. Having the wrong platform could set you up for years and years and years of success, or a huge switching cost later on.
So Jerry, what do you think?
Fleets want one data plan. And really, for all the equipment I bought in the years and the specifications, and Mark knows, I've worked with Mark at Wellback, no one's going to tell me what I'm going to put on my equipment that I'm ordering. So anybody that's not universal or open, they may have a short-term success, but they're going to die off fast because fleets buy multiple sets. To keep the competition, they don't go, especially the large fleets. You don't see a large fleet with really one brand of trailer. They have some multiple brands, and they don't want to have multiple data points come in. So it's got to go to one cloud, and it's got to be an open, universal partner, and that way it's going to work because they only want to pay that one person, but they want the data from the one thing. They don't want to have multiple sources. Then you still have data overload. It's got to go to one place, come out to one area, and that's the only way it's going to work. Otherwise, they're going to be sitting on the sidelines and saying, we had a good plan, but it failed.
Yeah, yeah. So Eric, what do you think?
Yeah, at one point we had 6 different vendors feeding us data from trailers at the same time. And each one of them had a wonderful portal, but my dispatchers weren't thrilled about having to figure out which one was on which trailer and logging into that portal. So they wanted a single pane of glass. So one of the initiatives that we've done, and we're still in the process of doing it, is providing an integration point, regardless of what trailer vendor we have or what even tractor side, given that one single pane of glass for them to manage that.
Oh, good. Oh, good. So one of the things that came up earlier today was around standards for different parts of our industry, and there have been standards put in place. Do you think that this is an opportunity for the industry to come together, and the carriers and the OEMs and the telematics providers to come and talk about standards so that things are more universal, so that you can diversify across the OEMs? Or
Yeah, from an OE standpoint, absolutely. And the industry has, as you saw at TMC, there's certainly a large focus on that. And the industry is changing. The amount of technology providers outweighs that of bearings, grease, seals. So it's changing. So I think so. And you could argue that that's been successful in the heavy duty market with the advent of wired connection or wired tether. That never got, I don't think, too much progress on the truck trailer connection in years past. Hopefully newer technology helps bridge that gap to make a better standard. So we have to look at it in a new perspective, I think. Same challenge, new perspective, new tools.
Yeah, lots of new tools. Jerry, your thoughts?
Regulation's going to drive some things. You look at the Food Safety Act and how that changed, even though it's not required, but how that changed and gave the reefer companies with their telematics a little boost in the take rate. But Mark's right. The connection between the tether between truck and trailer is a little antiquated. The 7-way has used up all of its pins. There's got to be some work there to really help drive that connection back through to the truck and really talk about a coupled connected vehicle. But I believe with all the buzzwords out there, autonomous, platooning, you're going to need some of that different connectivity because, for example, if I'm going to platoon, I need to know what that guy has from a brake system standpoint, because if I'm all air disc brakes and he's drum brakes, I can't lead. I can't follow it. I can't follow because I'm going to stop fast. He's going to stop slow, and every time that drum brake's going to go in the back of me. So we're going to see some regulation, and then the fleets are going to do it. Fleets have the buzzword I use is pull through power. So someone's going to pull through something, and you just look at air disc brakes, what the take rate is today versus yesterday. So as the fast rabbits get out there and the fast first adopters, there's a lot of things going to change, and that's going to force some other changes to come, and even force some changes in the smart trailer market as it evolves. The evolution comes in, and then and as things shake up, and then who rises to the top and so forth, and that's going to shake it up. But it's going to be driven by some regulations and what we do there.
Okay. So Eric, what do you think about that as well?
From a hardware standardization, I'm not very versed on that and don't have a great opinion on that. I'll defer to the hardware guys on that. But from a software standpoint and a communication standpoint, absolutely. If we could have some standardization, it makes integration so much easier.
So let's talk a little bit more about sensors. We touched on that. So what are your thoughts on wired versus wireless at this time? I'm going to start with you, Jerry.
It goes back to how I want my data.
Yeah.
I want my data now, and the best way to get that is through a wired sensor. Now, not everything can be wired, right? I can't wire a tire. I really can't wire a wheel in because it rotates. But anything else, I can wire a lot of my important things, my ABS for sure, my lights, you know, is another important thing, even out to, you know, some brake stroke indication or even brake wear. So some of the important things really can be wired up because that gives me instantaneous. So that way that wireless connection, if it fails or breaks down or it causes a latency, I don't get data that really is actionable and important later on. I can get it pretty quick, and that's where the wired has more of a, you know, advantage. And then, well, you know, plus if I'm using it as a safety system, you know, to where I'm into a backup camera or forward collision mitigation. A lot of people don't talk about that. We have, you know, forward truck mitigation out there. We don't have nothing for going backwards. I need that to be wired for it to be instantaneous anyway. So I'm a wired where you can wire, and then where you have to go wireless, you have to.
Yeah. Any other thoughts on wired versus not wired?
As long as the security side of that is figured out too. There early on, pairing was that was an issue. There's always a chance, but going back to that wrinkle of complexity with the tractor trailer, it's not one size fits all. I think there's going to be the right application for the right piece of information you're trying to gather. I love the Rube Goldberg analogy. I'm a Purdue engineer, so you know we tend to make things overly complex. The best system is one that is super simple, and that's what we try to keep in mind is what is the easiest, simplest way, because usually that means low cost, low maintenance, longer lifetime. So that's what we're looking for. So I just don't think one size fits all in that case.
Yeah. But one thing that is important for any type of technology on the trailer is the fact that that trailer is not connected to power for a good portion of the time. You know, certainly as we're driving down the road, we can pull the power from the tractor, but when we're sitting untethered, which is a good portion of the time, you know, it's really important for power management. So, Jerry, how do you deal with power management in an untethered state? Do you continue to communicate as often as you do when you're moving?
No, obviously when it's untethered, you want to slow that down, right?
Yeah.
But again, that's up to the fleet and what they want to look at. But, you know, battery life today with lithium ion and so forth, and then solar technology, depends on how they want to do it. Then you can design that system to meet their needs. Maybe solar is going to give them because they want to be a little bit more aggressive. Or maybe they want it to go into a state of, hey, I'm not going to do nothing unless an issue arises or someone calls upon me, and then I can report. So that's all programmable, and to me that's how you attack it, and you just explain that to whoever's speccing that. But that's all in there to where you can set that up specific to the fleet.
Mm-hmm. And Mark, a question for you, as you are thinking about, you know, the future of trailers. I mean, in your crystal ball, where do you kind of see this all going?
Like we said earlier, the next generation of innovation for us is certainly going to be new materials. So it'll be in the structure, but it's going to be in electrification. There's going to be more electronic innovation happening in that space. I think the need for power on the trailer is not going to go away. It's going to get more intense as we think through this. Certainly, it's an immediate term problem, right? You don't know what your untethered length of time is. So it certainly makes the battery issue a challenge right now, and that's where we'll have to work through that. I think there's more technology out there that will help alleviate that issue, and that problem won't go away. I think that's something we're putting on our thinking caps on how to approach that.
Yeah, we work very closely with our friends at Philips because we, want to be able to pull power out of the harness in different places, and they're able to create a power drop for us in the back of the trailer, for tying into a lift gate. So yeah, I think it's going to get more and more complex, but I do think the trailers are getting a lot smarter. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So Eric, if you were to kind of put your crystal ball and look into it and see, what do you think the future is for kind of the trailer side of the business?
Well, I think that from a power standpoint, we do have to answer that. I mean, we've got units on our refrigerated trailers that draw off the battery from the refrigerated unit. Works great as long as there's fuel in the tank. Fuel runs out or they turn the refrigerated unit off and it's still reporting because it's a refrigerated unit. And the voltage drops below a certain amount, then you're not cranking that refrigerated unit for a while, so you have a maintenance problem on the trailer that was caused by your telematics product. So we have to solve that. But I think that what I would like to see in the future is almost like and I don't want to oversimplify this, but look like an Apple interface where all these components are plugged into a single interface where it's real easy to use and people can develop new things and put them on that interface. And nobody has to learn anything new, they just use it.
Yeah, I've actually, it's interesting because I've talked to a lot of folks just in the last, I'd say 6 months, who have asked for something like that you're describing, and that it be device agnostic, so that it really doesn't matter where the data is coming from, so that it's that it is just a platform that provides the information. I don't know if Jerry, have you heard that out in the market?
It depends on how I want to look at the data. The best way when you look at it is you got to go to a cloud environment, and then that cloud has to be universal and allow anybody to plug in so you can pull in. Because there's everyone has different back office systems.
Yes.
So you got to stay open and universal to be able to send in, and then you look at everyone has a different menu of ELDs, or even specifications from different ABS or whatever. So data's got to go to somewhere, and then that's where the plugins got to occur up in that cloud, and then any device should work at that point. But that's where it's got to occur. So you have that central hub, and then people can plug into that hub to pull out of there what they desire, because people want different things, and they want to look at them differently, and that's Mark hit the point. You got to leave it to where you can give the customer options to what they desire. If you don't, then you're not going to win, because that's the simplicity. You make it simple, you have it there, but they can plug in how they want, and then they pull the data out of that one platform how they want to look at it.
Yeah, it's interesting. Were you going to say something?
Yeah, I echo that. I think that exists, right? It is a clearinghouse, but is it a want or a need? How much are you willing to pay for it? We can do that today. There are software that culminates that, but it comes at a cost, and that's kind of that trade-off always.
And that's what's going to drive the industry. You said, what do we see at crystal ball-wise? Is someone's going to jump out and be that rabbit. Because when you can sit there and talk ROI, but until you have that use case of real live example of here's the ROI and here how it works, because you have a partner who wants to share that, then it's there. But when you look at it, because the CFO doesn't, yeah, he wants to know what it costs, but if it's bringing back more than it cost, he's going to say, let's run and go get that tomorrow. And that's the point you got to talk. You got to talk the CFO's language, because he's writing the check in the end.
Yeah.
Yeah, you hit on this earlier too, is that we coin it like trailer economics, right? There's so much freight that has to be moved. You're going to go out with limited capital and acquire assets to move X amount of freight. Mm-hmm. You can have a great ROI on reducing your maintenance costs. But if at the end of the day, they're 5% higher because of my IoT smart trailer, I can buy fewer trailers with that same amount of capital secured, it's not adoptable at that point in time. So we always have to keep trailer economics in check.
That's a really good point. Many of the trailer leasing companies have adopted trailer telematics, the basic trailer telematics, and they're all telling me that the reason that they have it today is, well, in many cases their customers are asking for it. But more importantly, because trailers are in such high demand, they want to be able to look at their customer base and see which of them are not using the trailers they've leased to them, so they can get them back and lease them or rent them to somebody else, which is very interesting.
But even if you look at trailer telematics, the adoption rate is still very low.
It's very low.
When you look at the number of trailers that's out there, and that's where the rabbits go out. But that's where it goes back to, when you look ahead, regulation is going to drive a lot of the adoption, just like it did with reefers. I mean, the reefer companies wouldn't have the adoption rate that they have now with their telematics if FSA wasn't there. They had to find the easiest way to comply. The easiest way was to go with the reefer telematics.
But it's interesting that the regs do not say you have to have telematics. The
Doesn't require it.
regulations say you have to have a process by which you can show the temperature in the chain of custody. But it does not say, but you're right, so many companies have purchased the telematics for their reefers just for that reason.
I would add to that, in addition to regulatory, because you can wait on regulatory or compliance. External forces too. I mean, when we talk about air disc brakes, platooning might be the very well force that puts air disc brakes on trailers. Yeah. Right? It's not regulatory, that's just new technology coming in. Drives change, the spec has to be updated, better braking performance. So those are the things that, gosh, I didn't think of that sitting here, 5 years from now. Oh, that was an indirect adoption of technology that caused this to happen.
And I tell you, Mark's right. And you look at it, you look at it with our, our top industry concerns, and you look, and I'll mention two. One is drivers, obviously, and really you can couple in drivers and technicians in the same deal, because without both of those, you're not going to have a trucking company. Right. And when you look at the technology, so I can save time for both of those guys, and by saving time, I really can now maybe reduce the number I need of both of those guys. And the second one is e-commerce. E-commerce is going to drive a lot of this stuff also, because customers want to see. So the demand for that on time, I heard someone say earlier, they order something through Amazon and they know it's going to be there tomorrow. That's today. When we go on to tomorrow, it's going to come in an hour. The only way to do that is the smart technology. You got to know where that is all through its chain. And the maintenance of that equipment and utilization of that equipment are all part of that chain within that delivery. So them are some external forces that are going to drive some adoption as more and more demands get placed on carriers, to where you say, hey, you're 95% on time, you're good. It's more like 99 to 100% now. And you can't afford a failure, because now you're out the door and someone else replaces you.
So that brings up another really interesting point that I've been hearing a lot of folks talk about and ask questions about. So they're asking about, is it possible to have some sort of reader on the trailer so you know what's going on every single trailer? So it's scanning. It's basically a scanner or a reader that's looking at either the pallets or the boxes themselves. And I've heard folks, ask me in particular, is that possible to couple that with a trailer telematics device so that you don't have to have somebody standing there scanning? Could it be automatically scanned?
Of course. If it can be sensed, it can be tracked. It's that simple. And we're going to see the day of a smart package. And that smart package will integrate with a smart sensor on that piece of equipment, which will then communicate to say that package is now on that container. And if you look at how LTL companies do it today, anything they put on, they're scanning, right? They have a scanner there, they're scanning it, goes on the trailer, or UPS, they're scanning it on and off. That's going to be automated. You're going to see everything go through that as we move through the supply chain, and all that's going to be, and that's going to save time again. Again, human capital is an external force, and we talk about drivers and technicians, but actually in transportation, you can even go higher than that. It's hard to find a VP of operations, a VP of safety, a maintenance guy. It's hard to find all those people. And that's going to be condensed, and a lot of that's going to be replaced through some automation and some advancements in technology.
And it can tie into blockchain too.
It will tie into blockchain. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about that.
Exactly. Mark, you were going to say something?
Yeah, absolutely. The technology is not the hard part. It's that value that are you willing to pay for it. Trailer economics are going to dictate every single time, which may be the prohibiting first move disadvantage.
Yeah.
Technology's out there.
Eric, what do you think?
No, that's a good point. I mean, we have to have ROIs on everything we do in trucking, and to make sure that we're getting value back out of what our investments are.
But this also brings me back to another question we asked earlier. We talked about standards. So in order for there to be a reader that's going to scan something, there has to be sort of this universal look, because you can't be picking up freight and scanning it from, one shipper versus another shipper. You've got to be able to have a more universal standards, right?
Yes, and someone will set that standard, and then other people will have to follow and adopt it.
Yeah.
The other way to skin that is just available cubic capacity in the trailer. Maybe not an RFID type, but visual scan where I can tell and know what my cubic available is. Then with weight sensing on the trailer, I know what my payload is. So that could make the driver's life easier. That could have big gains for the shipper. That could play into the freight digitization. So absolutely, but it all goes back to that trailer economics. Is it enough value to push the needle to invest?
Yeah, that's great. Okay, so we've got one more question, and then we'll open it up to the group for questions. And we touched on this a little bit earlier, but we talked about cameras, right? We've got cameras in the trucks, and then there are backup cameras, but talk about, where do you see cameras going on the trailers? Eric, any thoughts about how that might be an advantage to you inside or outside of a trailer?
Immediately, backup cameras, right? I mean, that's our number one accident. It's a backup accident. So cameras that could help do that would be great. But I'm a huge fan of cameras all the way around the truck, because I've seen what it can do. You've got, with the given visibility to a driver of a 360-degree view of his truck is a huge advantage. It makes us a lot safer on the roads.
So Mark, what do you think?
We just had an initiative to build a more robust bumper on the trailer, right? So you're adding weight. You're going the wrong direction with where you want to go with efficient freight. But it is a improved impact resistance. Cameras and the vehicle-to-vehicle communication in the future, I want to prevent it from happening, not provide something stout to run into, right?
Yes.
So it's that prevention, that's even the best bumper, is the one that you don't need to use, right? So absolutely, that's something that huge. I think you've got another audience then in that, which is there's insurance, right? That they're an audience of that data too. So,
Jerry, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to come, and it's actually coming fast already, the 360 overview, so you can cover those blind spots and also make up for some of the driver that we're getting influx into our industry. The day of the truck driver with a tool bag is long past, and now we're pretty much getting a different type of driver. And anything we can help them to minimize, to have accidents on the road, to damage equipment, which causes downtime, is going to be, it's going to come, and it's coming fast.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, so I think we've got our guys out there with the microphones. Does anybody have any questions? It's next to impossible to see.
Everyone wants to go home, Ronnie.
I know, I know.
It's like it's close to 5. Let's roll.
So I'm going to call it. No questions, right? All right. Well, thank you guys very much for being part of our panel, and thank you all for staying with us throughout this session. Thanks.